Howdy guys, UFC Paris just ended, and I thought it was a pretty good card overall. I ended up going 7 for 7 on picks, could have done worse, could have done better. I had a few that were very accurate and a few that were completely inaccurate. I thought the crowd overall were pretty electric at times. They were booing and cheering when necessary. And yeah, it was a pretty good event. So let's get into the first fight. First fight was Bolaji Oki versus Chris Duncan. Bolaji got submitted in round one. Not the pick I made. I thought Bolaji would manage to outdamage Chris to a decision. He looked really good in round one, I'll say. He looked fast and sharp. Although that could just be Chris is very slow for lightweight. He is not very sharp. And by comparison, when you have someone in there that is somewhat fast and someone that is extremely slow, the person that's fast is going to look quite fast. And yeah, he was out pointing Chris for what it lasted until he just got stupid and decided to go for a fucking trip on the guy that was looking for grappling the entire time. Went for the trip, ended up stumbling on the trip. I couldn't tell if he was just doing it to get Chris to the ground and kind of score a point by getting a takedown, or if he was actually trying to follow up and go to the ground with Chris. But in doing so, he ended up stumbling. Chris lunged for a guillotine, latched it up really tight, and just kept readjusting till it just sank in further and further. Oki couldn't manage to find a way out of it and wasn't doing all the correct things necessary to get out of it. Ended up going out as Chris let go. I couldn't tell if Chris knew that he was out or he just let go at the same time he happened to go out. And so he followed up with a few more shots and noticed that he was out, signaled to the ref, and the ref ended up stopping it. I didn't think Oki looked too bad. Like I said, I thought he looked pretty good, but just made a stupid decision like all strikers do every damn time. And yeah, got caught. The next fight up the card was Nora Carnol versus Jacqueline Calvacanti. I ended up picking Nora Carnol via decision. Not what happened. Went the other way. Jacqueline won by decision. Almost won by TKO at one point. But I thought maybe Nora could also get a finish. That also was completely wrong. I gave the first round to Nora. I thought she won off of control time and slightly better strikes. And then after that, round 2 and 3, I gave both of those to Jacqueline. Jacqueline was using her range really well. She also looked very fast. She hurt Nora quite badly in round 2. Nora had to recover and use the clinch to her advantage to kind of stall out the round. But I gave both round 2 and 3 10-9s for Calvacanti. And yeah, she looked pretty good. Her combos were fast. Her right hand was absolute money for most of the fight. If she would have followed up a little more intelligently in round 2 when she hurt Nora, I feel she could have got a finish. But yeah, I'm looking forward to seeing her fight again. The next fight was Daniel Beirez versus Victor Altamirano. I chose Victor Altamirano. I thought he would get it done by a sub, and that is also, once again, completely the wrong prediction. There wasn't even a second of grappling in this fight. I think Victor attempted a half-ass takedown in round 2, I think. But not what happened. Completely a striking match, and Beirez won. So, third wrong pick for me in the beginning of the card. In round 1, I and everyone else on the earth gave it to Beirez because he cracked Altamirano very early on. Altamirano was looking very jittery for most of the fight. I don't know if it was nerves or what, but yeah, he was just didn't find his range fast enough in round 1, and Beirez cracked him bad. Didn't follow up well. He kind of just went to the ground and got caught up with him, and it did even out in round 1, halfway through, I'd say. Beirez was landing more powerful shots. Now Altamirano was landing more volume. But round 2, I gave that to Altamirano. He came out with a lot more volume and really good kicks. But once again, Beirez dropped him, if only for a second. He did drop him late in the round. And so it's definitely one of the two swing rounds in this fight. I could have given it to Behrez, but I gave it to Altamirano. Round 3, kind of the same thing, except that Victor managed to, I don't know if I'd consider it dropping him, but rocked him really badly with a spinning back fist, busted up his nose, tried to follow through with some volume, but didn't get the finish. And then once again, at the end of round 3, Behrez dropped him again, picked up a kick, and hit him real hard. Victor stumbled over himself. I don't know if it was necessarily fully from the power of the shot or him having his leg caught. I think it was a bit of both. I also, in my opinion, gave that round to Altamirano, but the judges did not. They gave it to Behrez, and so Behrez won a decision. Next fight up the card was Aylin Perez versus Daria Zelezniakova. I chose Aylin by grappling domination to a decision, but she got a grappling domination arm triangle in round 1. She took Daria down pretty early on, ended up in mount, and from mount, she ended up in half guard and then found an arm triangle. Didn't even need to switch to side control to finish it off. Had enough squeeze from half guard. Took no damage, not even really a struggle, won very easily. And as a victory emote, she twerked all over Daria, completely Bundamaxing her way to her victory. And yeah, I'd like to see her again soon, sometime at the beginning of the year. Hell, if she could find a way, fight again at the end of the year. She took no damage. Next fight up the card was Taylor Lapilou versus Vince Morales. I chose Taylor to get it done by decision, and that's what happened. He was pretty much always a step ahead of Vince, just more defensively responsible, beating Vince to the punch. Vince did get better and better as the fight went on. I still gave all 3 rounds to Taylor. Vince eventually got takedowns later on as the fight went. He tried a couple in the first round, but didn't manage to get them. And he didn't, even though he got them, he still didn't manage to do much with them, really. Like, didn't advance position, didn't threaten submissions. But they did slow Taylor down. Taylor's output decreased as the fight went on, as it would naturally, unless you're someone like fucking Marab or Bilal. But even with getting those takedowns and Taylor slowing down, wasn't enough to give Vince an edge. Dude has a chin from hell and a rock-hard core. I mean, he was taking absolute bombs. Knees to the chin, big shots to the body. Never got rocked, hurt. So hats off to him for that, staying tough, but could never find the way to pull ahead. Lapilou, however the hell you pronounce his name, was always a step ahead. Next fight up the card was Ludovic Klein versus Roosevelt Roberts. I chose Klein by however he wants, and he got it done via decision. I don't really feel like I got this pick correct, because damn did Roosevelt give a good fight. He definitely has improved since his last couple of fights. His striking looked really sharp. His takedown defense wasn't too bad either, although Klein was hitting him with some really well-timed takedowns and some clever little shit. Like in round 2, he caught Klein's leg and then kicked the other one out from under him. Then he fell so clumsily and awkward. Klein followed up and latched onto him and pretty much won round 2 just through grappling. Klein's best work he did was in the clinch, hitting Roosevelt with elbows from over the top. And he definitely had to mix things up to pull this off. He could not have stayed at range with Roosevelt and won this fight. I don't think so. I think Roosevelt would have won through damage, possibly even TKOing him. I mean, he looked so sharp. At times, it kind of looked like he was hurting Klein on the feet. Really impressed with Roosevelt's performance. I don't think Klein necessarily lost stock, but he did not gain any stock. Moving up the card, the next fight was Umar Sy versus Dawoon Jung. I went with Umar Sy. I thought he might be able to get it done by a submission in round 2, but he ended up getting it done by a decision. Round 1, Sy had some really good leg kicks, and he got a little overconfident and got clipped in the striking, went for a takedown, got it, didn't do a whole lot with it, not really any ground and pound or advancing of position. Jung ended up getting up and landed some decent shots through the last bit of the round. He also got progressively better at defending takedowns as the fight went on. I gave round 1 to Young, but it could have went either way. It was a very close round. Round 2, I thought Sai was slowing down at the beginning because Dawoon was putting on a decent pace, but eventually he also got a little overzealous, got clipped himself, and Sai just poured it on at the end of the round, completely stealing the round for himself. Third round was pretty lackluster, pretty boring. Not much happened. Young shot a takedown of his own, got it stuffed and controlled, and that was pretty much all that happened. Pretty clear round for Sai. I gave it 2-1 for Sai, but it was a unanimous decision for the judges. They gave all 3 for Sai. He looked pretty decent. Didn't really take much damage. Yeah, not much else to say. The next fight up the card was Ian Cutelaba versus Ivan Erslan. I went with Ivan Erslan, even knowing nothing about him, just because I don't like Cutelaba. I think he's a bit of a retard, and I think his whole Hulk shtick is very cringe. But he did very good during this fight, honestly. He had some really good takedowns, shot quite a lot of them, but also Irvin had really good takedown defense. Ian had to hit some really well-timed takedowns to get Ivan down. Round 1 was pretty back and forth. It was very low volume, but they had a lot of power in their shots. Round 2, Cutelaba played possum and tried to get Ivan to bite on it, but he didn't, and kind of acknowledged that in a funny little exchange. Kuta got a takedown in round 2. Ivan reversed it and pretty much kind of just stayed on top for the last bit of that round. Round 3, kind of more of the same shit. Ian shooting takedowns, Ivan defending or reversing them. It was a good fight overall, not too lackluster, but nothing I'd rave about. The volume, like I said, was pretty low throughout the fight. Next fight up the card was Fares Ziem versus Matt Frevola. I ended up choosing Frevola by KO, and I was completely wrong. Ziem KO'd the fuck out of Frevola. Round 1, Frevola got a good takedown and came real close to a sub, but ended up losing it. When they got back to their feet, Ziem hurt Frevola quite badly at the end of the round, so I ended up giving round 1 to Ziem. Round 2, Ziem looked even sharper, Frevola even sloppier. Frevola did some decent work in the clinch, landed some good shots, but it wasn't enough to outpace Ziem's volume. Ziem also got his own takedown and came real close to a sub himself. I gave that round also to Ziem. Round 3, Ziem got a really well-timed early takedown. Frevola scrambled out, and up against the cage while they're clinching, Ziem landed a huge knee, just KOing Frevola cold, completely crumpled him, and followed up with some of the most nasty follow-up shots I have seen in a while. It was super necessary. Next fight up the card was Morgan Shire versus Gabriel Miranda. I went with Morgan Shire by TKO, and he managed to get one in the second round. The first round, not very entertaining, quite uneventful. A lot of hit-or-miss combos, and Gabriel shooting bad takedowns and pulling guard off of it. And I personally cannot stand watching grapplers pull guard, especially when they're dangerous submission artists. At this point in your career, you should have learned how to shoot a takedown or manage to get the fight to the ground without putting yourself in a bad position and just hoping your opponent follows up. So yeah, round 1, not too eventful. Really could go either way. I gave it to Morgan. Round 2, though, as they were disengaging from the clinch, Gabriel tried a weird little leg trip and ended up very out of position, and Morgan hit him flush with a hook, dropped him, followed up on the ground, and finished him off. Next fight up the card was Kevin Doucette versus Brian Battle. I went with Brian Battle. I thought he would just beat Kevin up, and that is exactly what he did. He didn't respect a single thing Kevin did or does. Kevin's a judoka. Brian grappled with him. Kevin has decent strikes. Brian just fucking ate them. He never blocked anything. He needs to get some head movement if he ever faces somebody with some real power. Because, man, he would just eat a strike cleanly and then respond with 3 or 4 of his own. First round, I was nervous about all the grappling Brian was doing. I thought it would maybe impact his gas tank pretty badly. But it actually impacted Kevin's more than it did Brian's. And by round 2, Kevin was quite gassed. He was breaking. You could see it. And Brian just kept the pace on. A tremendous pace. Landed a lot of good combos in round 2. Eventually just crumbling Kevin. Well, I guess he didn't crumble. He got kind of saved from crumbling by the ref. You could almost consider it a early stoppage because he wasn't completely dead, but it was well on the way there. The next fight up the card was William Gomi versus Joe Anderson Brito. I went with Joe Anderson Brito. I thought he'd eventually manage to find a finish just because of how dangerous he is. He's always looking for a knockout or a submission, and that was just how he fought in this fight. I personally gave him round 1 and 2, but the judges did not. It was a split decision for William Gomi. I thought William definitely did enough in round 3. He was landing some really good body kicks, and just kicks in general. He was very slick, while Brito was just kind of like a bull in a china shop, just throwing giant overhands. He missed a lot of his overhands. I feel he would have had a better fight if he would have fought a little more composed. I couldn't tell if he was fighting to, like he was, to put on a really high pace and maybe gas William or freeze him up, but it almost came off as emotional with how just crazy he was fighting. Like, just throwing caution to the wind, reckless abandon. He came close at times with a few submissions. He held on to an arm triangle he had, I think in round 2, for way too long, in my opinion. I think he should have abandoned it at some point and just kept looking for ground and pound. Good fight from both guys, though. William continues his very long win streak. I look forward to seeing both of them fight again. Next up was the co-main event, Nasruddin Imavov versus Brendan Allen. I thought Brendan Allen could manage to pull off some submission along the way, but it did not happen. Round 1, Allen got a good takedown very early on and just sat in half guard and side control for the rest of the round, easily winning round 1. Round 2, you could definitely tell Allen was a little more gassed. Imavov was ready to defend the takedowns and defended, I think, every single one after round 1. He was landing really good ground and pound in round 2, and Allen was very desperate for the takedown. Imavov kind of dominated that round, although I wouldn't give it a 10-8, but it was definitely his round. Round 3 was kind of a little bit of the same, except they were both very gassed now. By the end of it, they were dead, both of them. They were done. Like, they had nothing left to give. It was a pretty good fight, although round 1 was absolutely boring as shit. Round 2 and round 3 were pretty entertaining. And last, in the main event, Renato Big Money Moicano versus BSD. Round 1, Moicano took Benoit down with a well-timed takedown where he caught a kick and spun to the back and drug him down. Never let up. Was just ground and pounding for pretty much all 5 minutes. The entire time he had control. Latched up a body triangle and BSD just could not get out of it. Just eating big elbows and really wound up punches cleanly. Got battered. If you said that was a 10-7 round, I wouldn't argue with you. I gave it a 10-8, but it's honestly debatable for a 10-7. Round 2, it was very reserved. You could tell Benoit was pretty hesitant to get taken down again or even get punched in his eyes because his eyes were swelling up so bad. And Renato seemed like he didn't want to get caught or gas out. He wanted to keep the advantage he had, and so it was very measured. You could give Benoit the second round. I gave it to Moicano. And after that round, the doctor stepped in and had to stop it. I mean, Benoit's eyes were swelling up to the point where he probably couldn't see out of his right eye and getting to the point where he couldn't see out of his left eye. I don't really have much of a problem with the stoppage. It looked pretty gruesome, and if it kept going, it would have got worse. And that pretty much sums it up for this card. If you watched this long, I greatly appreciate it. If you enjoyed it, you know the drill. Like, comment, subscribe. And, yeah, see you next time. Godspeed, cunts.